Gym owners, I have read 1,200 books over the past 12 years. Okay, that is by all accounts intense. In this video, I'm gonna break down my system for exactly how I not only read that many books, but I actually do things differently based on what I learned. This is Mark Fisher from businessforunicorns.com, and I am excited to talk about one of my favorite topics because I love books. They're one of my absolute passions, one of my absolute hobbies, of course. That's part of how I'm able to consume such a admittedly silly amount. And I want to start by, again, reiterating, I'm not saying that all gym owners should read this much. In practice, part of how I consume so much, if I were to give you one hack, it's, well, I really like it. It's my hobby. It's what I do for fun. So I'll go more into details about this, but the reality is I think it is a fair criticism that I maybe should have some other hobbies in my life, but it just happens to be this is one I really, really love. And again, if you are able to find ways to consume and read books in such a manner that it changes what you do, it can also lead to better outcomes and better results, not only in your business, but also in your life. Point number one, I am consistent as hell. I start every day with reading. Now, sometimes it's only 10 to 20 minutes. More often than not, it's usually 20 to 30. And my target, and not uncommon, is more in the 45 to 50 minute range. So you gotta consider, if I'm doing this 5 to 6 days per week, that's a pretty great base to start right outside the gate. Point number two, I do augment with audiobooks. Now, I think it's fair to say reading books with your ears is a different type of consumption. And in practice, I definitely do way less audiobooks than I did. For a long period, this was a big piece of my approach to consuming books, to continuing education. There is situations where I'll decide I'm looking to skim a book and I don't mind listening on it 1.75 or even 2 times speed, but I'm the first to admit I don't think I'm getting a ton out of that. And the more information dense the book is and the more I need to actually take action steps out of it, the more likely I am to reserve that book for a physical reading, whether it be in the morning or the other places where I tend to actually physically read the books. Point three, I read other times. So the other times I read tend to be, I travel a lot for work, so I spend a lot of time on planes, so I tend to read there. I do read, as I mentioned, for leisure, for fun on the weekends. Oftentimes that's not work related, and I actually try to be specific about if I'm gonna read something on the weekends, not being highly tactical, not saying about marketing, I'll focus on maybe social philosophy or something else. And not to be underappreciated, my newest passion, hard science fiction. So most days I end my day by reading for 10 to 20 minutes while in bed, get me sleepy. And that usually tends to be, in fact, is always fiction. Another technique that I use sometimes and I find very valuable is, depending on what the book is, if there's an audiobook available and a physical book, I will sometimes, this is quirky, I will read the book while listening to the audiobook. Now, I might still need to pause here and there. I think one potential danger of this is my brain wanders when I'm reading. By definition, it's almost what I'm looking to do, and I need to stop and reflect on what I just read. But I have found that reading the book and getting the visual context while listening to it can be a very powerful experience to supercharge my retention learning. My next point, I always have a queue of upcoming books that I'm going to read. Now, certainly some of these books are a physical stack that's sitting there where at any given moment, I have an idea of what I'd like to read next out of my current stack of books, but I also keep a digital document of books I would like to buy, and about once a quarter, I will freshen up my stock and I'll order new books to create a new stack that I will then work on the next quarter. Another point, I love rereading. So when I say I've read 1,200 books, it's actually not 1,200 individual books because some of those books I've read as many as 4 to 5, even 6 times. As an example, The E-Myth, which is a classic book about entrepreneurship, I have read probably 5 times at this point, maybe 6 actually, I'm not sure. I like to go deep on the books that I love that have been very impactful and review it over time because as I develop, as my career progresses, I will catch different things. Different things will be maybe more applicable to me now than they were in previous readings, and I find that to be very powerful. So going deep and becoming an expert on core books you love is another great technique. My next point, when I'm thinking about reading, broadly I have 2 buckets. I have 1, hyper-tactical business books, which I'm looking for specific tactics. What is a specific thing I can do differently in my business, an action step I can take that's going to get me better results. On the other hand, I like general liberal arts humanities education. So this is everything from moral psychology to social philosophy, general philosophy. I'm always looking to fertilize my brain with a deeper understanding of myself and the world. I'm not looking necessarily for a business idea, but I think by deepening and enriching my understanding of what it means to be a human, what motivates humans, what matters to me, how the world and society functions, I think it makes me more effective, again, not only in my business, but as a human. And my final point, not everybody should read books, and maybe that's weird, and I just talked a video about this, but that is definitely a thing I've learned over the past few years, because when I first got into this, I was a little bit, maybe not dogmatic is the role, but I was very enthusiastic. And I'm quoting, Charlie Munger says that he's never met an intelligent person that's not reading all the time. And Seth Godin says that readers are leaders. But I concede this is a different moment even than 15 years ago. The opportunities, the resources, the mediums whereby which people can learn are much broader and varied than they've ever been. And you might find that you just don't learn that well from books. You might find you do better off with videos, or with maybe audio learning is better for you than actually reading the books. It's not always obvious or intuitive for many people to take information from books, put them into action, and then learn by what feedback they get. So going to workshops, working with coaches, having courses, particularly when you're dealing with skill development, that sort of real-time development and feedback as you try to do things and see how it goes or not, is a massive part of learning, and that isn't replicated with books. So books are an amazing foundation. They will facilitate a lot of those ideas, but we have to be careful that we don't become the type of learner that knows the names of everything, but doesn't actually know how to do anything or really understands what the names means. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in finding out more about what type of books I love, you can go over to businessforunicorns.com, check out our blog. I am always updating, usually once a year, my list of must-read books for training gym owners. There's just a handful in each category, so I don't wish to overwhelm you with zillions of books, but I do want to give you my personal favorite, what I think are the most impactful books that every gym owner should at least consider reading. Until next time, as always, I hope you hit that subscribe button, because then I can see you again soon, because soon enough I shall have another video where I will share with you more actionable tips, psychological frameworks, and yes, philosophy.